you guys? Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. As you know, this is the number one place to discover the people, the ideas, and the proven methods that are helping business owners create more success, freedom, and fulfillment. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga. And if you've maybe ever felt, or maybe you're building a business only to wake up one day and wondering, why does it feel like this business owns you instead of the other way around? I think today's episode is going to be the one for you, because this episode will challenge the way you actually think about success, burnout, and what it actually really means to build a business that fits who you are. And I already know you're going to want to share this episode with someone who is feeling a little stretched, overwhelmed, or maybe just stuck in their business journey and not sure what the next move would be. But just make sure you are subscribed to the Online Prosperity Show so you do not miss out on any future conversations that could actually completely change the way you live, learn, and also contribute. Now, I'm really excited about our guest today. And our guest today is Matt Linnert. Now, Matt, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Prosper.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. When I met you at the conference, I was like, wait a minute, we've been talking for quite a while and we haven't actually met in person. And it was such a pleasure to actually meet you. And I think we had a bit of a longer conversation than I had with anyone while I was there. And we exchanged books. And so thank you so much for my copy of your book, Kill the Chameleon.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was great to connect with you in person.
Absolutely. Now, for those that are meeting Matt for the very first time, he is the author of Kill the Chameleon. I'll be putting links to this book in the show notes below. He's also a mentor, coach, an entrepreneur, educator. He's also a software founder. He's a yoga therapist himself, financial planner, and he's just someone who's actually spent more than 20 years helping business owners regain clarity, confidence, and control. And as I've already said, so many of us are building a business, but we're not quite sure if we're actually going to be thriving in them. And we've created for ourselves a second job. And I don't think that was, the plan with it. But I think Matt is going to be letting us know, because he's actually managed to do quite a lot of things. I mean, so many people struggle to choose one career, but as you're going to hear from Matt's story, he's someone managed to collect mathematics, financial planning, yoga therapy, software development, personality assessment, business coaching, and community building. And yeah, he's even also had time to write a book in the process. So I think this is one of those things that so many people can learn from and actually find out what it is that they can do in order to do and have a business that's profitable and enjoyable. But Matt, I could go on and talk about things I'm not even qualified to talk about, right? So let us know, when you were younger, who was Matt, and maybe what did success look like in your mind?
Yeah, great question. Success. When I'm younger, when I go back to, say, my 18-year-old self, I feel like I adopted the concept of success from society around us. Maybe a house, a car, a fulfilling job. So the focus was very outward, and success, I think, for a lot of people, that's where it often begins, in an outward direction. And I pursued life based on those metrics, if you want. And in my late 20s, I discovered that success that leaves you feeling depleted isn't success at all.
That's a very good place to start off from, because so many people chase the accolades, the certifications, the clout of having been or being someone in the in the process of wanting to satisfy that societal expectation. But what does success look like for you today?
Today, well, it evolves, right? Over the course of our lifetime, it's something that can evolve. And right now, today, success for me is feeling settled today and feeling very excited about the future. So it's like this paradox. Today, I'm a complete rest. I'm happy. I'm not distant from the people I love and care about, and I'm super excited about what tomorrow has in store.
Absolutely. All right. Now, and congratulations for having achieved that because so many people keep chasing that proverbial carrot without actually noticing that what they actually want is right there in front of them. Now, you've worked in mathematics, education, also finance, and you dabbled in technology, coaching, and well-being. When you look back at all of this, is there like an invisible thread that connects them, or was it just you trying to find that fulfillment that you talk about?
There's certainly a thread, but there's also like the voyage, the process of discovery. So I think in the early part, it was more that voyage. It's what actually works for me, and trying a lot of different shirts on, for example. And then the second half is really there's a very strong thread, which I can explain if you're curious about
Yeah.
that. But the
Mm-hmm.
mathematics to start with. I was reasonably good at mathematics when I was a student at school. So isn't the idea that you pursue what you're good at? So that led me into that space. But what I discovered is sometimes what you're good at isn't actually that good for you. So a very strong analytical, intellectual pursuit was something that I had some competency in, but there was something else which I was supposed to step into. And I only really discovered that a little
Mm-hmm.
later in life. And when I say later in life, I'm just talking sort of late 20s, early 30s, which led me into the other pursuits that I've engaged with since then, which draws on other things: creativity, curiosity, contribution, other aspects. I can still use that mathematical development, but the application of it is different from where I started.
Absolutely. And I think it's a realization that so many people realize a little bit later in life. And I love the statement that what you're good at is not necessarily what's good for you. So many people might be really good at a certain skill set, but it might be depleting them at the end of the day or leading them to burnout because they obviously are, looking for, success in the wrong sort of way or in the wrong metrics. Now, you often talk about business owners losing clarity, confidence, and control. And that happens to a lot of people while you're immersed in that which you think you're good at. And it's probably not being good at you, and you're no longer clear about what you're supposed to be doing. And you might be good at something, but it's not paying you. So it makes you lose the confidence of, wait a minute, am I actually really good at this? Or was I kidding myself? And the control of outside circumstances. Was there maybe a period in your life where you may have experienced exactly that yourself? And what did that look like?
So in my late 20s, I experienced professional burnout. And that was at a time where the loss of control had nothing to do with workload. It was simply because what I was doing wasn't what I was really suited to do. So it was something that I could do intellectually, but in terms of the suitability, it's a little bit like this. At the moment, you're writing with your right hand. Yes? Now, if I asked you for the rest of the day, you need to write with your left hand, then you can still do it, but it's going to become hard work. It's going to be harder than it needs to be. Yeah?
I actually have to think,
Yeah, keep going. You have to think, right? You can't concentrate on what I'm talking about because you're concentrating so
Yes,
much on writing with your left hand. So I think what happens is we can start to feel like we have a loss of control or a loss of focus or even a loss of capacity because we're trying to write with our left hand when we're actually right-handed.
because that's who obviously that keeps yes keeps you in the right sort of frame of mind. Now is this just a mad thing to experience, or is this happening across the board?
This happens all over the place. So whenever somebody says burnout, they're often describing a binary experience. So we're either burnt out or we're not. But that's not the way burnout works. It's like a spectrum. Okay. So When a person's in their 20s, they probably have the energy and the capability to work against their grain without it knocking them around as much. But as we come into like our 30s and our 40s, and we might have other commitments, kids, trying to stay healthy, the more we're working against our grain with our left hand as opposed to our right hand, then the more energy it takes to actually engage to get through the day, which means at the end of the day, we don't have as much energy to come home and be focused and our families really just get on the scraps of what we have because we've spent so much during the day. Now, is this just a Matt thing or is this universal? Well, the statistics are there. Something like 88% of small business owners will experience a form of burnout during their business life. 70% of small business owners will experience difficulties in their personal relationships because of the stress coming from business. And sometimes that stress is like it's real, like cash flow challenges. But sometimes that stress is simply because we're trying to work in a way which doesn't really suit us. We've
Mm,
adopted somebody else's model. We've seen somebody else do something in a way which we think that looks like a good way to do business. And they
mm,
may even give us that advice, but we need to be really clear as to, well, what really works for me. And that can evolve different chapters of life as well.
absolutely. You see, fish don't see the water that they swim in, Matt, and neither do people see the air that they breathe. And half of the time, people don't quite realize that they've actually created their own burnout. But we drive cars and then they give that light that say check engine, and that something needs to be checked. Otherwise, this is going to cost you the longer you don't do it. What's the check engine for ambitious people?
Yeah, great question. You know what? I think ambitious people find it hard to say it. In my late 20s, when I burn out, complete professional burnout, struggle to get out of bed, burnout. Okay. A month before, my employer said, "How about you take a mental health day?" And I was like, "Oh, really? Okay, I'll take a mental health day." I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't even sure I really needed it because I was so focused on the future. I was so focused on success that I didn't recognize what my body, what my emotions, what my energy levels were trying to tell me. So I think ambitious people find it hard to see the signals because they're very future focused. So what do the signals look like? You might just notice that you're a little bit more distant at home, or you might be more irritable. The way somebody packs the dishwasher isn't quite the way you think it should be packed, and all of a sudden there's this irritation in your system. Nobody's driving the way they should be driving on the road, so we become very reactive. We might start cutting somebody off when they're halfway through a sentence because we don't have the patience to stay with them. So the signals are there. They can even be like a stomach ache. We're not sleeping quite as well. We start to second guess ourselves. They're all little signals that are there, but we're usually too busy and too convinced that they'll all pass and we can just get on to whatever's next. And what I'm passionate about is that this destroys families. It destroys the very things that we care about and the very things that we wanted to support and the very thing that often motivated us to go into business in the first place.
Absolutely. So that means people are just trying to fit in to whatever scenario, but it's at the cost of them being who they are absolutely supposed to be.
And pushing forward, just this need to forever be pushing forward. Just stop for a minute and ask, is this really working?
Now, the title of your book, Kill the Chameleon: How Business Owners Can Avoid Burnout and Thrive with Clarity and Authenticity. Who is a chameleon in all of this?
You want to know where it came from? The title? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right. So I was working in finance. I was late 20s. I'd already been in mathematics and education, and now I was in the finance sector. And all the signs of this isn't right were there, but I ignored them. And then one day I couldn't really function. I couldn't get out of bed, Prosper. So I was married at the time, and my wife, with an incredible amount of strength, she said, just do whatever you need to do. She was worried about me, but there was nothing left for me to draw upon to function in a healthy way. And then one day, I was just laying on my lounge room floor, listening to something on the radio, and it was an old Bob Marley song. And in the lyrics, it says, don't worry, everything's going to be all right. Don't worry, everything's going to be all right. And I was so depleted of energy. I couldn't really fight against the idea, and I couldn't really embrace the idea, so I just let it be. And a few moments later, I was like, I'm going to give up the fight against everything that is not really right for me. And I completely let go of the fight against letting things be. And there was this release of tension, which I don't know how long I'd been holding, of I'm not going to try to fit into this world anymore. And I walked into my backyard, and the trees were green, and the grass was vibrant, and the sky was blue, and it was like richer than I'd seen it in a long, long time. And I looked around and I said to myself, the trees aren't trying to be a cloud, and the cloud's not trying to be a tree. And I'm not going to be a chameleon anymore. And that's where the title comes from. And when I came up with the title for my book, which I wrote last year, 25 years after that experience, the strength of that realization was still so strong and present that that's what ended up on the front cover of the book. And I'm not alone, because if I was alone, I would have been out of business over 2 decades ago. There's a lot of people that think they have to do business in a way which just keeps everybody happy. And in a way, they shapeshift to try to achieve that. And it becomes exhausting.
It's something that I didn't tell you, Matt. And thank you so much. You know, when we were growing up, we would, because I grew up in Africa where chameleons are actually, very prevalent in the savannah. So we would try and play with the chameleon so much if we see it on the tree or whatever, because there was a belief that if it changes its color quickly, it would actually explode. So if it is in a green environment, we would try and put a red background on it and quickly change it to put it in a green background so that it completely quickly changes. And it was just a fun thing that kids would want to do. I don't condone, doing that to chameleons, but it would actually, the belief was it would explode if it had to change really quickly. And I'm supposing that would have been burnout in reality right there, trying to morph into that which you're not and quickly change so that people don't catch you while you're trying to camouflage yourself so you don't get caught out.
Yeah. Well, for the record, I didn't research the nature of chameleons. It was just a statement that came to me. Okay. So, and I think it's really natural to kind of do that chameleon thing for a while. Try different things out, see what feels right, see what doesn't feel right. Like I think it's quite natural for people to do that. I just think that when we stay there, once we've discovered what's true and good and right and it works with us and not against us. I think honoring that is the challenge. So look, I haven't been out experimenting with
It's,
live chameleons. I'll leave that to you.
you leave it to
But I think the
crazy African
metaphor
kid.
makes sense, eh?
Yes, and there's one thing about a chameleon as well where it moves so deliberately, like it's got this movement of it, and then up until it latches onto something, it takes the movement is so deliberate so that it's not visible and seen by any of the predators, right? So that's how it moves, like it's just like really slow and deliberate. I encourage people to actually check out a chameleon moving and how it actually works. And its eyes actually look 360 just to see if no one can see it. And I can visually see somebody trying to be a chameleon within their life, their business, and just holding on. Can somebody see me or whatever it is? up
Yeah.
until the background changes for them. And the background changed for a lot of people, like COVID. COVID was
Yeah.
a background change. It's like musical chairs when the music stops and you don't have a place to sit. That's exactly what happens with a chameleon, you know.
Yeah.
But some people don't notice it until it's a little bit too late. What are some of the warning signs that somebody has become a chameleon in their own business without them realizing, Matt?
Yeah. Well, the thing that you mentioned before is a fish doesn't realize it's in water. Okay, it's a really insightful expression, and I think that's what happens to us as well. Sometimes we don't realize the environment we've created around us until maybe someone else points out, saying, "Are you happy?" You know, like maybe you need a mental health day, and it's like, really? I didn't realize. So I think sometimes the signs, uh, it actually comes from people around us, where our
Mm,
spouse or our partner might say, "Oh, are you going okay?" And it might be a question that they don't ask every day, but they've asked today. And often the expression, especially for ambitious, motivated, vulnerability protecting small business owners is, "I'm fine. It's been a bit of a tough day. I'll go again tomorrow." So we don't really stop and observe and acknowledge that the environment might not be as good for me anymore. The environment which I was okay in 10 years ago is actually not suitable anymore. So the symptoms, you ask about the symptoms, right? The symptoms are irritability. I mentioned it before. I'm getting annoyed at things that I wouldn't usually get annoyed about. I can't stop thinking about something in business and I'm home trying to have dinner with my kids. Um, Restlessness, the inability to sit still, to sit back and enjoy a book or enjoy a movie. And then there's
mm.
the other symptoms, which are more physical, neck stiffness, stomach issues.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for opening us up with that. Now, Matt, you'd also understand you keep talking about the environment, right? But I think also the environment is to blame because when I arrived in Australia, Matt, there's a statement, and I think a lot of people still say, "Oh, she'll be all right, mate. You know, she'll be all right. Everything's gonna be fine." Or if you go to a construction site, take a glass of cement with your lunch or something like that, stiffen up and things of that nature. So some people would argue that stress, sacrifice, and burnout are just simply the price you pay for success. That if you are gonna want any extraordinary sort of results, then you gotta suffer or pay for them. What would you say to that?
Well, I think the question is, what is success?
Mm,
What is it? What is success anyway? Yeah. So for me, I'll share this story. There was a young, motivated, ambitious fella. He turned up at a networking event I was at last week and he said, "Matty, what was your big wins of this week?" And I said, "Well, I've woken up every day and I feel connected to my family. We've had dinner together most days of the week. I'm happy and I'm enjoying my life." And I said to him, "What's your big wins?" "Well, I won this contract and I've got this meeting booked in with such and such next week." So he's a young guy, he's ambitious, his concept of success, his big wins were commercially orientated. And the big wins for me is like the everyday, like the rich stuff, which I know isn't going to be here forever. And it's the stuff which I want to really connect with. And what is that? It's time with my kids. They're a long time gone. So I want to not just be with them or spend time with them physically. I want to be connected with them emotionally, spiritually. So what is success? Okay, just have a cup of concrete and get on with it. Well, business isn't easy. Business can be hard. And sometimes you do absolutely need to sacrifice yourself to progress, to improve some things. But what's the ratio? So if 100% of my life I'm sacrificing myself to get from point A to point B, is that the right balance? And for me, my work, yeah, there's 10, 20% of my work is stuff which I might not be completely excited about doing, but 70, 80%, I'm in the zone. Like it's beautiful. Yeah. And I just think the question is, do we really need to give up a whole bunch of good stuff in order to achieve something over here that actually might not really stack up that much?
Mm, absolutely. See, that's that's an amazing place to sort of put it there. And you did mention the event happened for you almost 25 years ago when you went outside and you saw vivid colors, of the trees, of the grass, and you felt alive from what you are mentioning there. Because when you start seeing the aliveness of your environment, that's you also coming alive. But you went on, you wrote the book, it was almost instinctively. 25 years later, no grand publishing plan, no commercial strategy. You literally, have this book on your website. You gifted me a copy of this. That's an urge. What was happening inside of you that actually made you feel that this message had to be shared? Why now?
We've talked about burnout in the sense of feeling overwhelmed, irritable. I think something else happens is burnout can also present as boredom or just going through the motions. And you know what? I don't want to go through the motions at any stage in my life. And a couple of years ago, I noticed that I was completely engaged with my clients when I was with them. But outside of that, I was just sort of going through the motions a little bit. And I woke up one morning and I thought, you know what? I've got over 20 years of experience. I don't want that experience to die on the vine. I don't want it just to sort of ooze away. It's helped too many people. Why don't I just write? It was 21 reflections from 21 years of coaching. And I wrote it in 2 days. And I looked at it all and was like, if I'm going to do this properly, I need to bring it together in a way where somebody can actually consume this, can actually follow this in a logical way. And when I put all that together, I looked at it and I had a manuscript for a book.
Wow. And I mean, obviously you're saying you almost did it in 1 week. Kudos to you, man. It's that's a lot of work. I've written a book myself and it's not an easy feat. But what do you think happens when, purpose, values, challenge and contribution actually all meet in the one place? Because I think this is what was happening to you, the urge to help people to not be the chameleons in their life or in business.
Well, for me personally, I know what it feels like to get to that point of going, what am I doing here? I know what that feels like. And I don't want anyone who hits that point to feel like they're alone. So the drive is really, really deep and it's really strong. And then it was just being willing to let all that come through me. Okay. I just get rid of any of the obstacles, any of the thoughts that says this is going to be a big job, and just let the thing flow. So from a values perspective, I love contribution and creativity and curiosity and sharing and learning. From a perspective of personality, I like seeing people evolve and be inspired and develop. And it just wasn't an overly conscious decision. It was just, this just felt like it was time to do this. And literally, I was waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and against everything that I would teach people, which would be start your day at a good steady tempo, right? But I couldn't stop this thing. It was like it was just coming through me, straight out into the typewriter, and all of a sudden there it was.
Mm. It's like Neil Welsh, who said he, he was writing like letters from a download and everything else. And I kind of feel like the download is timely in as much as I think you are literally giving language to something that a lot of people had always just been seeing but haven't quite put a finger to it. Because I think there's one reader that have actually said this book actually gave me permission. You know,
Yeah.
why do you think so many people or business owners are secretly waiting for permission to be themselves, or somebody to tap them on the shoulder to say it's your turn now to stop being the chameleon in your life?
It's a fascinating concept. Why permission? Like the feedback I had from all of my early readers was I feel validated. I feel seen. I think what I've wrestled with, explored, inquired into, which is, who am I? How do I get to turn up and work in a way that feels really good for me? How do I stop needing to people please and sacrifice? Can all that be done in a way which it actually adds up so I can feed myself and family and put a roof over our heads? I think it's universal inquiry. And anyone who goes in a small business, they've probably tried to have a job somewhere and it didn't work out. They've tried to fit in wherever. I don't think there's that many small business owners that come out of school going, I want to be a small business owner. I think the majority of them have ended up there because everywhere else hasn't really worked out. So then they're still trying to adopt and adapt what they've learned elsewhere into this new venture. And then that's sort of dragging some of the old into the present. And I think what I point to and what I talk about is deep human yearning. And it resonates. It resonates. Some people just want to have a simple life and they turn to all kinds of advice and they're told to push harder. But that's not what they feel in their heart. Permission to just to be okay with myself. There's this idea that continual improvement is what the foundation of life is. But for me to keep training you to write with your left hand instead of your right hand, it lacks compassion. I want to see you and support you in 100% alignment with what's right for you. I don't care whether it's right for me or not. And that's the message of what my work's about, is respect yourself at such a higher level that you're going to build an environment, a business, a life, which brings out the best in you.
I don't know about you, Matt, but I'm working right now.
Yeah.
And for somebody who might be looking at this, might be thinking, wait a minute, how is that possible? You know, and it doesn't have to be as stressful as you say it
Yeah.
is. And you know something that I've also noticed, Matt. I mean, obviously having spoken to you at the event and now speaking to you right now, you might have started in mathematics. Okay, obviously it's a discipline that is built on pattern recognition. All right, if this then that, 1 plus 1 is 2. There's a pattern to it. You know, if you add something or subtract it, there's usually a universal sort of conclusion to it. And then you moved into personality. You also did finance and education, you know, technology and coaching. You know, it actually just seems your entire career has just been about pattern recognition and helping people see patterns for themselves that they may not have been able to see. And now you're giving them a language to explain what it is that they are experiencing instead of being frustrated, like you're saying, having a stiff neck or sore tummy. It's this that is actually your problem. So perhaps that's why your clients experience such profound clarity. I mean, I just had that while just talking to you right now, because you're not just giving advice, you're helping them see that hidden pattern underneath their confusion. You're literally giving them themselves back.
Yeah. Here's the interesting part. I would say I work harder now and have done so over the last 2 decades than the years that led up to when I burnt out professionally. The difference is what I'm working on and working with suits my nature. Whereas before I was working less, but against my nature and experienced burnout. Now I don't need somebody to to give me advice on what to do. I just needed to be shown what worked. And that's what pattern recognition is all about. And you're quite right. Mathematics is a study of patterns. And we can get from point A to point B in a nice, efficient, and accommodating way, or we can solve the same problem and go all the way around the world and back. We can still get to the outcome. But elegance is about how to get from here to here without having to make it harder than it needs to be. It can still be hard, it can still require time, we still put in effort, but do we have to make it harder than it already is? And pattern recognition is recognizing that not everybody is wired the same, so we shouldn't all work the same. And we know this. When we look at our kids, we can see that they have differences. And it would make sense that they use those differences in a positive way. But when we look at ourselves, we don't often look with the same level of compassion and love and consideration. And we say, just muscle up, just keep pushing through. So if we can give ourselves the same level of respect that we would give somebody that we, love unconditionally, then it's all about pattern recognition and figuring out where's the suitability, where's the match.
What I like about what you're saying is you're helping people buy back their time. It took you 25 years to put this book together. But I don't think everybody that's watching this and listening to this has 25 years to figure it all out.
Well, they don't need to. It's there. We learn from people that have already walked the path, right? So, but the path isn't I just walk the path someone else has walked. The path is that I learn what's going to work for me and embody that. And you know what, Prosper, when I hit professional burnout, I spoke to a lot of people and I didn't find one person that I felt really got me. And that's a hard place to navigate.
Why is that? Is it because everybody's also suffering through the same thing in their own spectrum? Like you said, it's not necessarily a hard and fast way, but people are going through their go-throughs that they might not have gotten you because they too would want to add to that. But
I think the reason that it's often hard is because people feel like they need to give advice quickly. So you go and sit down with somebody and they go, right, well, here's 3 things that I think you should do. But to begin with, we need to increase our awareness. We grow our awareness of what actually, if I see a dolphin on the beach, I don't go and say, how about we give you some resilience training? Right? It's not in the, so I need to understand the dolphin first. And if I take my own time to understand the dolphin, then I recognize that the environment that it suits is in the ocean. So then we get it in the ocean. And I think when I was going through my burnout experience, I had people say, do this training, go and study this, do this course, and whatever. It was very external. Whereas what I needed in that moment was just stop for a minute. You're okay. I've got you back. Let's have a look at what works for you and let's have a look at what doesn't. And then from there, you'll be clearer on what decisions are the right decisions for you.
the environment we work in is not very helpful because one minute you're seeing somebody on LinkedIn achieving certain accolades, and it's probably somebody you started with or started together with and things of that nature. Let's just imagine there's a business owner that's watching this right now, Matt, and thank you so much for your time to be with us. They're obviously exhausted. They may be successful on paper. They've just posted one of those random things on LinkedIn that makes them look like they are a-okay, so people don't question them and things of that nature. But they're wondering if they can keep going on internally. Things are just not adding up. What's the first step that they should maybe take, maybe after watching this video, just tomorrow morning?
Look, being being willing to own, to really own that things aren't as good as what I'm pretending that they are. Okay? Like social media encourages us to create this impression that we're going amazing. But the majority of small business owners today aren't enjoying it as much as they'd like to tell people that they're enjoying it. Like it can be hard. So if somebody is doing really well in one hand, but on the other hand, they're going, I don't know how much longer I can do this for. That's your question, right? What does that person do? What that person does is take a deep breath and share that with somebody that is in their world. Actually say to somebody, I'm finding this harder than I thought it would be, or I'm not enjoying this as much as I thought I'd be enjoying it. That's the first step. It's a big step. Anyone who decides to work with me, my hack, I take my hat off to them before we even start because they've decided that they want to do something about it. The challenge is that that feels like a great threat to admit to somebody that I'm doing really well in business, but I'm not really enjoying it. That's kind of like a secret that people like to keep. So we need to find somebody that we go, you know what, it's not going to be easy, but that's one person I can actually reach out to. And
Mm,
never compare yourself to other people on social media because you'll only get their highlight reels.
mm,
I see
absolutely.
a lot of people, I see a lot of people turn up and everyone will think that they are just kicking goals every direction of life. But behind closed doors, everyone has their struggles.
They have a statement for it. Then don't they call it a public success but a private failure? You know, you are publicly out there getting all the accolades. And no wonder why success feels emptier than expected because we're all chasing what other people that are already empty inside are going after. And when we realize that, you're like, wait a minute, is that all there was? You know, why did I not be around my kids or do the things that I absolutely love while chasing this, only to realize it's not what I really wanted in the end. So, all good. Now, if people are looking at this and maybe trying to get a copy of this or just maybe get in touch with you, where on the internet can they go to connect with you, Matt?
Well, the easiest place is my website, which is mattlinnert.com.au, MATTLINNERT.com.au. That's probably the easiest place to start. And just reach out. And if you're one of those people that you're just describing, which is it all looks good in the public, but I'm not feeling so good personally, if you've got no one else to speak with, please send me a message. Maybe I can help. I know what it feels like.
Absolutely. I'll put all of that in the show notes there so that people can actually be directed to the work that you're doing and connect with you. Now, indulge me there, if you may, Matt. You did mention, you were going through stuff and then you laid down, listened to a bit of Bob Marley. And, the song was Don't Worry, everything is going to be all right. And you went outside, you became alive, you saw what you saw, but it took you 25 years up until you then had to actually put pen to paper and write the book and things of that nature. Would you say that 25 years was somewhat of your rite of passage? Because had you not gone through all of that and then taken the lessons and worked through what you had to go through, then the message that you carry today wouldn't have the weight that it has based on the lived experience that you went through.
Look, the lived experience was the foundation that sits underneath all of it. And I could have written 20 years ago about what I learned through that experience and in particular on that day. Without a word, I learned all about alignment. The natural environment taught me everything I needed to know about alignment in that moment. And what it felt like. It's like all of a sudden I am not separate to anything around me. Right? People talk about belonging. You don't need to belong to a sports club. You like, sure, that's great. You can have that. But there's universal belonging, which is beyond the way we think. We stop thinking the connection is there. Okay, that's sort of going all the way down the yoga therapy sort of world, but it's there. Okay. In terms of putting pen to paper and writing, when I've been working with these principles with people from all types of small business, and I've watched the transformation they've experienced, that gives more evidence and I believe credibility to the principles that I could have easily talked about 2 decades ago because it
Absolutely.
needs to work. Right? You can have any concept that you want, but if that concept doesn't really work, on repeat, then the concept isn't as strong as the concepts that I like to depend on.
Absolutely, because there's got to be weight to it. And obviously, as a mathematician, it has to be a solution to the problem. And
Yeah,
things
yeah,
now.
yeah. And a method, like if you look at it from a mathematical perspective, if you come up with a method that just works on these occasions and it never works anywhere else, then the strength of it isn't there. Whereas if you take the same principle, approach, process, and you apply it here, and it keeps on delivering a reliable outcome, then we've got something which is solid. So I guess to answer your question, maybe 25 years was the time that I was testing it out. And then I became adequately confident with what I have there.
Absolutely. Well, now that you've shortened the learning curve for us in the book, thank you so much for this. And you've brought us into your world. People are definitely going to jump there and connect with you and maybe grab themselves a copy of the book. But what's next now that we're in your world? What are you working on that we can now be excited that maybe the next 25 years is going to be another culmination of some really exciting activities that you're working on?
Yeah. Well, 25 years would take me to 50, 70. That'd take me to 78. So, that's, hopefully I'm still around when I'm 78. Look, I don't think I'm going to stop. Right this year, I've taken the content in Kill the Chameleon and I'm starting to build out an online environment which has some online courses and some community. Because what we're talking about is it can be easy to understand in concept, but not necessarily easy to put into practice. And I've had a lot of people read my book. Oh, it's really interesting. It's getting me thinking. And I have people that I work with privately, and I see these incredible transformations, and they're somewhere in the middle where I can still help people, but do it, where someone could be in Sri Lanka or Canada or wherever it may be, I can positively contribute to their lives. So later this year, I'll be rolling out Settled, which is my online, offer membership environment where people can come and engage with these ideas and be really encouraged to use those in their life. After
Absolutely.
that, who knows?
But Matt, I can't thank you enough. I mean, obviously, your life story and your experience have given us a gift that I know is going to be a gift that is going to keep on giving because when people are showing up in their best, best person that they possibly can, not only are they doing it for themselves, but those that are around them. So you single-handedly can literally make the world a better place by just helping somebody kill the chameleons in their lives. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing.
You're welcome. And when they do it for themselves, everyone benefits, right? So it's awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely. What an incredible conversation. I mean, today's episode really wasn't about burnout. I stopped thinking of burnout the moment we walked into here. It was about identity, it was about discovering that success without alignment can just become another form of struggle, and so many people are just wandering out there not figuring out what it is that they can be doing, have. So perhaps the greatest lesson from Matt's journey is this: you don't necessarily need to become somebody else to succeed. You just need to become more of who you already are. And I think that's something that a lot of people haven't really put their finger around, or don't have the language for it. And I encourage you to check out the book Kill the Chameleon so that you can actually get some of these concepts into your head and shave off 25 years of trying to figure it out. And I don't think your family, your kids, your business has 25 years for you to figure it out. All right. So if you can do it in 2 to 5 days of sitting down with this book, I think you would have saved yourself a lot of pain in the process. So if today's conversation actually resonated with you, I encourage you to share this episode with a business owner or a leader or maybe an entrepreneur or maybe a friend who might be carrying a lot more pressure than they let on. We all know those people, like what Matt was told earlier on, to get a mental health day. We've probably told our friends to take a day off or something like that. If you found yourself saying that to someone, maybe you can give them a copy of this book. Check it out in the show notes below. Maybe they might need this information more than anything else. And while you're at it, why don't you subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show so you do not miss out on any of these conversations that we have on this show here. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do with this information. I just want you to ask yourself this question: are you building a business that serves your life, or a life that actually serves your business? And your answer to that will change just about everything else. I don't know what you do with this information. Bye for now.